once again, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you guys here for another episode. I am your host, Andrew Rogers. Yes, host, creator, be all to end all on TST. A one-man show, I guess, if you want to go that far with it. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. Hope you're ready for another jam-packed episode of TST Total Sports Talk. This week we got a lot to cover, as always, and you know what? Why not just get her underway? What we like to do here at the beginning of the show, at least, is talk about a couple of local happenings, or at least give you the top local headlines as we can before we jump into our segments, because those are really important, the segments later on. But there are some things that we've been working into our show and including on a regular basis. And part of that was the introduction of the Intercounty Baseball League, which we're covering right here on TST right now. Let's give you a quick idea of what the scores were from this past week in Intercounty Baseball League action. First off, we were supposed to have a game on this past Friday, May 11th, between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the London Majors, but it was forced to be rescheduled. That game is going to be made up over the May long weekend, the May 2-4 weekend, Saturday, May the 19th. It will go at 6 o'clock. We'll have more on that in a moment, a little bit later on here. On Saturday, May the 12th, there was a few games. We had two games on the schedule. We had Kitchener defeating Burlington 6-0, and they improved to 1-1 on the season after dropping their season opener 3-1. The hands of the Barrie Baycats. They bounced back and shut out the Burlington the Burlington Herd 6-0. Like I say, they improved to 1-1. Burlington goes to 0-1. We were supposed to have Brantford at Guelph. That has been rescheduled for Tuesday, June the 12th at 7:30. Finally, moving on to the Sunday, there were four games on the schedule for Sunday, May the 13th. It was Barrie over Burlington 15-1. Barrie improving to 2-0 on the season. We had Hamilton at Brantford. Hamilton downing the Brantford Red Sox 4-2. We had the London Majors over the Kitchener Panthers 4-3, and we had the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Guelph Royals 14-4. Now, what that leaves us for with our updated standings, you have the Barrie Baycats at 2-0. They are tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs at 2-0 for the number one spot in the Intercounty Baseball League standings. Hamilton at 1-0 is a half game back. London Majors at 1-1 are a full game back. Kitchener Panthers at 1-2 are a game and a half. You have the Guelph Royals at 0-1, a game and a half. Brantford Red Sox at 0-1, a game and a half. And Burlington Herd in the 8th spot at 0-2. Off to a rough start for them, but hopefully they can turn it around. Upcoming schedule for this upcoming week: on Thursday, May the 17th, Barrie will visit Burlington. That's a 7:15 start. Then on Friday, May the 18th, it's Kitchener against London. That goes at 7:30. And then on Saturday, a pair of games, three games on the schedule. On Saturday, May the 19th, Guelph is at Barrie at 2 o'clock. Hamilton at Burlington at 1:05. And then Toronto and London, as mentioned earlier, rescheduled for Saturday, May the 19th at 6 o'clock. You will have then on Sunday as well, you'll have Burlington, and then on Sunday, moving to Sunday, May the 20th, you have Barrie at Brantford at 2, Hamilton at Kitchener at 2, and Burlington at Toronto at 2 o'clock. So yes, the Intercounty Baseball League is a fantastic baseball league. If you ever get a chance to get out and watch some of these games, they're fantastic. The action is intense, the action is impressive, and these guys really give it their all, and it's worth the price of admission for sure. It's always a good time at the ballpark, and they really get good crowds out for this thing, and it is a nice little thing to bring the family to if you ever want to take your family to watch a baseball game and watch these guys be ultra competitive, man, because they are good and they are strong and they are playing their hearts out, and that's what you love to see when you're going to watch a baseball game. We switch gears now. We want to talk a little bit about the 2018 World Hockey Championships. That's right, Canada in the thick of things. As we move on to that, the preliminary rounds have come to a close. We have our final standings in Group A. Sweden finishing first in Group A standings, going 6-1, 0-0 to lead the Group A in points with 20. Russia finishing in second with 16. The Czech Republic at 15 are in the third spot, and Switzerland in the fourth spot. They will be the number 4 seed, and they will move on to the the quarterfinals. We'll talk about that in a minute. First, the Group B standings. Finland winning Group B pool, going 5-0-1-1 for 16 points, giving them the advantage over USA, who finished second and they have 16 points as well. Canada finishing third, going 4-1-1-1, good for 15 points, and then Latvia at 3-1-2-1, go 13 points, 2 ahead of Denmark, who just missed out. Germany also missing out, Norway and South Korea in the Group B standings. In terms of our quarterfinals, first we have Russia against Canada, that'll go at 10:15, and then the USA against Czech Republic, that'll also go at 10:15 on Thursday. Then we have Sweden going up against Latvia, that'll be a 2:15 start, with Finland taking on Switzerland at 2:15 as well in the quarterfinals. Semifinals will then be played on Saturday, with the gold medal and bronze medal games being played on Sunday. Yeah, so like I say, Canada right in the thick of things with the World Hockey Championships, and they are playing very, very well. They got a tough draw, though, man. The Russians will not be an easy task for a Canada team that has looked strong at points, but they also have looked kind of suspect at points. We'll see if they can bring it all together for this quarterfinal matchup against the Russians. It should be a dandy of a contest, that's for sure. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back with your Owen Sound Liuna Local 1059 Senior B North Star segment, and more about the Ontario Senior B Lacrosse League. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back on the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. We want to talk now about the Ontario Senior B Lacrosse League, more specifically your Owen Sound Liuna Local 1059 Senior B North Stars. They were in action twice this past weekend, both games on the road against the Ennismore James Gang. Let's get you up to speed on what happened in those two contests. First contest, it was Owen Sound and Ennismore. Owen Sound coming out on top and picking up their first win of the season down in the Ennismore James Gang. 9-5 was the final. Owen Sound, like I say, improving to 1-1, while Ennismore drops to 1-2. Tyler Glebe getting the win for the Owen Sound Senior B North Stars in the net for them. He stopped 29 of 34 for the victory, while Cole Murray gets the loss for Ennismore. He stopped 36 of 45. On the Ennismore side, they had 5 different goal scorers, including Chris Lopez, Cam Crow, Jeff Swift, Josh Gilroy, and Cole McWilliams. Josh Gilroy adding a pair of assists for a three-point night. While on the Owen Sound side, it was Travis Zabalix adding 3 goals for the Owen Sound North Stars, pacing the offense for them, if you will. Colin Maudsley also adding 2 goals and 2 assists, a big 4-point night for him. 4-point night for Zach Thompson as well, a goal and 3 assists for him, while Todd Greer adding 3 assists. Like I say, the Owen Sound North Stars getting their first win of the year, a 9-5 victory over the Ennismore James Gang to improve to 1-1. They followed that up again with a second of a back-to-back on the road against the Ennismore James Gang. Owen Sound coming out on top 10-8 was the final to take the sweep in this mini 2-game set. Owen Sound improving to 2-1 on the year, while the Ennismore James Gang fall to 1-3. In terms of the goaltending, we had Ryan Olgerive get the win for the Owen Sound North Stars. He stopped 25 of 33 in the win, while Ryan Mastins stopped 35 of 45 in the loss for Ennismore. They had a lot of scores on this night. It was a lot of people doing a lot of damage, but it was ultimately not enough. Matt Fountain, with 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points. Cole McWilliams had 3 goals and assists for 4 points. Jeff Swift adding 4 assists for 4 points, and Chris Lopez adding a couple assists. Dan Michelle adding a goal and 2 assists for a 3-point night, but it was not enough as mentioned. Over on the Owen Sound side, there was plenty of scoring to go around on this evening. Colin Maudsley adding 2 goals and an assist. Andy Campbell adding 2 assists. Jeff Ivey, his first Senior B North Stars game, he added 2 goals and an assist. Lachlan Elder with the big game for him. He had a goal and 2 assists for a 3-point night on the afternoon for the North Stars. And like I say, a big victory, 10-8 over the Ennismore James gang to improve to 2-1. As we look at now the standings, we look now at the standings, or excuse me, what we'll do before we look at the standings first, we'll give you an update of the rest of the league this past, as we look at the scoreboard. First on the Saturday, May the 12th, you had the only other game on the schedule that evening was Oakville defeating Kitchener 15-4. And then on Sunday, May the 13th, you had Brooklyn getting their first win of this season as they downed Kitchener 15-8. And then Oakville defeating Six Nations 18-5. Oakville starting off hot as we turn over to the standings now. As mentioned, we were going to do, which we are now. The standings are like this. Oakville Titans at 3-0. They are the only undefeated team in the OSBLL. They are 1 game ahead of the Six Nations Rivermen, who are 2-1. You have the Owen Sound North Stars at 2-1, the Brooklyn Merchants at 1-1, Ennismore James Gang at 1-3, and the Kitchener Velocity at 0-3. As we look at your upcoming schedule for this upcoming week of the May 2-4, a lot of teams off. There's only 2 games featuring 4 teams. You have the Brooklyn Merchants against the Ennismore James Gang. That one goes at 8 o'clock on Friday, May the 18th. And then the Six Nations Rivermen against the undefeated Oakville Titans. That goes at 8 o'clock as well on Friday, May the 18th. Yes, it is a lot of, like, this lacrosse is just fantastic action, and these teams really bring it each and every night, and it's a lot of fun if you should happen to get out to any one of these games in any one of these areas. The great teams, great talent, and these boys, these guys really put it all on the line every single night, and it's very impressive to see. Great bounce back weekend for your Owen Sound Liuna Local 1059 Senior B North Stars as they pick up a pair of victories. Up next for the North Stars, they're off this weekend, the long weekend, May 2-4 weekend, but they are back in action on Friday, May the 25th at 8 o'clock when they have their home opener at the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Center against the visiting Kitchener Velocity. And then on Sunday, May the 27th, it's a 4 o'clock afternoon start at the Bayshore when they welcome in the Six Nations Rivermen. That should be a dandy of an affair. A couple of very tough games and a couple of, at least a winnable game and a very tough matchup against Six Nations. But any contest can't be taken lightly in the OSBLL, and we can only hope for more successes moving forward for your Owen Sound Senior B Liuna Local 1059 Senior B North Stars. This has been your North Star segment for this week's episode of TST. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. What we want to talk about now, what we would normally talk about right now is the Ontario Hockey League, but great news. All 3 of the Canadian Hockey League's individual leagues, they all finished this past week, and we have our Memorial Cup field set for the 100th Memorial Cup. It should be an absolute fantastic tournament between the 4 teams that are going to be representative. One we already know are the Regina Pats. They're the host team. They are out of the WHL, and they should be a tremendous host. They're one of the most experienced Memorial Cup teams in history, and they should provide a great venue and a great host for this monumental Memorial Cup. Let's first tell you who's going to be there. We start in the Ontario Hockey League. That's right, we pick it up. Hamilton winning the OHL championship in their 3rd year in incarnation, as a part of the OHL. They win their first OHL championship, and it's the first OHL championship in Hamilton history. the city of Hamilton's history in 42 seasons. It's just unbelievable. 42 years since their last championship in 1976, and they are OHL champions of 2018. A massive 5-4 victory in game number 6 sealed it all for the Hamilton Bulldogs. They are your champs as they down the CHL's top-rated Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. It's a disappointing end for them as they loaded up for a run, but they could not get it done. This Hamilton Bulldogs team, led by Robert Thomas, who was named the MVP, leads them to an OHL championship. So yes, it's the Hamilton Bulldogs are your OHL representative. We now move on to the Western Hockey League, where it was the Everett Silvertips up against the Swift Current Broncos, and it's Swift Current coming out on top in this one, downing the mighty Silvertips, and Carter Hart, the Western Hockey League goalie of the year. They downed them 4-2. They win it in 6 on the strength of a huge 3-0 shutout victory in game number 6 to take the series 4-2. The Swift Current Broncos, man, you got to believe that they were playing with a lot of heart and a lot of emotions in this championship. Interesting note here: Swift Current Broncos. They were involved in a tragic bus accident back in 1986. The Humboldt Broncos won the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League Championship that season. Fast forward to 2018, where the Humboldt Broncos are involved in a tragic bus accident, which we all know, and this year's Swift Current Broncos team goes out and promptly wins the Western Hockey League Championship. Quite an unreal coincidence, but they will represent the WHL as the WHL champion. Ironically enough, the Regina Pats being the host team, Swift Current was the team that knocked them out of the playoffs in the opening round. Should be a fantastic representative. I cannot think of any better for the Western Hockey League as champions than the Swift Current Broncos. Moving on now, we go to our final representative and our final champion out of the Quebec Major Junior League. It's the Acadie Bathurst Titan will be representing the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League as champions as they down the number one ranked Blanville Brasson Armada as they take that series 4-2. Huge 2-1 victory in game number 6 to seal it, and they will move on. The Acadie Bathurst Titan winning their 5th Quebec Major Junior Hockey League championship. They went 16-4 in the playoffs, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. But yes, the Memorial Cup should be absolutely incredible, and it will go like this when it comes to your schedule. It gets underway Friday, May the 18th at 10 o'clock. It'll be the Hamilton Bulldogs against the Regina Pats in the opening round-robin game. The second game of the round-robin will go on Saturday, May the 19th at 4 o'clock between the Swift Current Broncos and Acadie Bathurst Titan. On Sunday, May the 20th, it'll be the Regina Pats against Acadie Bathurst Titan at 6 o'clock. And then round-robin game number 4, Swift Current will take on Hamilton on Monday, May the 21st. That'll be an 8 o'clock start. Game 5, we'll see Acadie Bathurst Titan against the Hamilton Bulldogs on Tuesday, May the 22nd at 10 o'clock. And then finally, the round-robin will wrap with the 6th game of that. It'll feature the Regina Pats and the Swift Current Broncos, a rematch of the first-round playoffs series between the Broncos and the Pats that went 7 games, with the Broncos advancing and ultimately winning the WHL championship. That will go Wednesday, May the 23rd at 10 o'clock. And then the tiebreaker scenario will be played out on Thursday, May the 24th at 8. A semifinal will then take place on Friday, May the 25th, and the championship will go Sunday, May 27th at 7 o'clock. This is going to be one heck of a tournament. The Memorial Cup is one of the hardest tournaments to win, in my opinion, and this is one of the recent years in which, one of the rare years where there is not a clear-cut favorite to win the entire tournament. It's a very even playing field, and it should make for an interesting tournament. But it will be fantastic. That's all for this week's segment on the Canadian Hockey League. And you know what? We'll maybe we'll be putting to bed at least the round robin portion on next week's episode of TST Total Sports Talk. So make sure to check that out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. What we want to talk about now is the NHL and the NHL Playoffs. 2018 Playoffs is fully underway. When we last picked up, we had one matchup left to be determined in the Stanley Cup Playoffs, and that was the series between the Nashville Predators and Winnipeg Jets. And it's the Canadian team, the Winnipeg Jets, coming out on top. A massive 5-1 victory in game number 7. They chased Pekka Rinne early. Then Nashville was not able to recover. Winnipeg taking this game in commanding fashion. Like I said, 5-1 was the final, and they will move on now to take on the Winnipeg Jets. Will move on now to face the Vegas Golden Knights. So it's the Canadian team with a chance to win the Stanley Cup for the first time in 25 years since Montreal in 1993, taking on a team that is playing in their first inaugural season. How this schedule will play out, so they have already played 2 games in the series. It sees the series all knotted at 1 game apiece, Winnipeg winning the first game 4-2, Vegas coming back strong and winning 3-1 in game number 2. Game number 3 will be played tonight, 9 o'clock in Vegas, as the series shifts to Vegas, with the first 2 being in Winnipeg. Friday, May the 18th, is game number 4 at 8 o'clock in Vegas. Game 5 will go Sunday, May the 20th, at 3 o'clock if necessary in Winnipeg. Game 6 will go then Tuesday, May the 22nd, at 9 in Vegas if necessary. And finally, Game 7, if it should go that far, will go Thursday, May the 24th, at 8 o'clock in Winnipeg. Moving on now to your Eastern Conference final, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning and Washington Capitals. This series is already 3 games in, and it sees the Washington Capitals a surprise 2-1 lead in the series at this point. Game 4 of this series will go Thursday, May the 17th at 8 o'clock in Washington. Game 5, if necessary, Saturday, May the 19th at 7:15 in Tampa. And then Game 6, if necessary, Monday, May the 21st at 8 o'clock in Washington, with Game 7 going Wednesday, May the 23rd at 8 o'clock in Tampa Bay. We'll talk to you about the American Hockey League. First, we want to take a look at our TST NHL Playoff Bracket Challenge update. Currently, right now, Paul I is in the lead. He is tied with Blake B, both at 195 points. Joey A sits in third at 185. Mike F at 185. He cannot move anywhere, though, as he has no more points to be awarded throughout the rest of the way. You have Josh C at 175, Rob B at 160, Butch C at 160, Jessica R at 155, Andrew C at 155, Brad C at 150, AR number 2 at 145, Chris H at 145, Jesse T at 140, Chad S at 135, AR1 at 130, JB at 130, Sean R at 125, Brandon G at 125, Ethan H at 125, Joseph C at 125, Jordan M at 115, Jody C at 110, amongst a bunch of others. Now, all the X's there basically mean that you cannot advance any further and you cannot gain any more points the rest of the way. It should be a fun haul to the rest of the NHL playoffs, the rest of the way till we crown a champion, and we can ultimately crown a TST NFL or NHL Playoff Bracket Challenge champion. So that should be a lot of fun. Yes, like I said, we'll switch over now to the American Hockey League story. We currently picked it up in midway of the second round. We know now where it stands and who will take place in both the Western Conference Championship and the Eastern Conference Championship combatants, and they are as follows. So right now we got the Rockford Ice Hogs. They beat the Manitoba Moose 4-0. They advance. They will take on the Texas Stars, who beat the Tucson Roadrunners in 5 games, 4-1 in that series. They will take place. They will go head-to-head, as that series is as follows. It would be Rockford against Texas, with Texas getting home ice advantage. The game 1 of this series will go Friday, May the 18th at 8 o'clock in Texas. Sunday, May the 20th at 6 o'clock in Texas for game 2. Game 3, 4, and 5 will go in Rockford as they play a 2-3-2 format in these AHL playoffs. Game 3 goes Tuesday, May the 22nd at 8 in Rockford. Thursday, May the 24th, Game 4 at 8 o'clock in Rockford. Game 5, if necessary, goes Friday, May the 25th at 8 o'clock in Rockford. Game 6, if necessary, Monday, May the 28th at 8 o'clock in Texas. Game 7 will go then Tuesday, May the 29th, 8 o'clock in Texas, if necessary. And then finally, you have the Lehigh Valley Phantoms that advanced. They defeated the Charlotte Checkers. 4-1 was that series win, including a 2-1 victory in a 5 overtime game in Game 4 to give the Lehigh Valley Phantoms a 3-1 lead in the series. They would ultimately end up prevailing in 5, a 4-1 score in the games. There, as we also know, the Marlies, we talked about it on last week's show. They advanced to the conference final on the east side, sweeping the Syracuse Crunch 4-0. They look very dominant at this stage in the AHL playoffs. Their series with Lehigh Valley Phantoms gets started on Saturday, May the 19th at 4 o'clock in Toronto as they have home ice. They will get Game 2 as well, Sunday, May the 20th at 4 o'clock in Toronto. Game 3 of the series will take place Wednesday, May the 23rd at 7:05 in Lehigh Valley. Game 4 as well in Lehigh Valley on Friday, May the 25th at 7:05. Then on Saturday, May the 26th, 7:05 in Lehigh Valley, Game 5. If necessary, then Game 6 and 7, both in Toronto, will go Monday, May the 28th, and Wednesday, May the 30th. Both those games at 7 o'clock, and again, if necessary. So yes, the AHL playoffs are in full swing, and we are getting closer to crowning an ultimate AHL champion, as well as an NHL champion. It's very exciting times right now in both these leagues, the NHL and then their farm clubs battling it out as well. So it should be a lot of fun the rest of the way, and we'll continue to cover it as long as it keeps going. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here, your host of TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me, and hope you're enjoying the episode thus far. We switch gears now to the NBA and the NBA playoffs. Last checked, we were talking about the second round of the NBA playoffs. There was one series left to be decided, and that series did not take long to finish. It was between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, like I say, Boston advancing, they win game number 5. Very tight-knit game, a nail-biter, 114-112 was the final. Boston advancing, and they will take on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round, in the Eastern Conference Final. We will talk about that in a moment. First, we switch over to the Western Conference Final. It is being taken place between the number 1 seed Houston Rockets, who went 65-17, and the Golden State Warriors in the number 2 spot, who went 58-24. The first game's in the books, and it was Golden State with a huge upset in game number 1, 119-106 was the final. They take a 1-0 series lead. Game 2 of this series goes tonight, 9 o'clock in Houston. Game 3 will then go Sunday, May the 20th, as they break in between games 2 and 3. That'll go at 8 o'clock in Golden State when it shifts to there for Game 3. Game 4 will go Tuesday, May the 22nd at 9 in Golden State. Game number 5 will then go Thursday, May the 24th at 9 o'clock in Houston. Game 6 will go Saturday, May the 26th at 9 o'clock in Golden State, again if necessary. And Game 7, if it goes that far, will go Monday, May the 28th at 9 o'clock in Houston. Let's examine that Boston and Cleveland series over in the Eastern Conference for the final and for the championship with the right to go to the NBA Finals. It'll be contested between the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Boston having home court in this one. They went 55-27 while Cleveland went 50-32. 2 games are in the books, and this is a big surprise. Boston, they are in the driver's seat with an early 2-0 lead in the series. Cleveland looking very ordinary after sweeping the Toronto Raptors, especially game number 2. LeBron doing it almost all himself. He had 42 points. He had the triple-double in the ball game, but he could not lead the Cavs to victory when he was so good at doing that in the Raptors series. But like I said, Boston holding a 2-0 series lead. Next game in this series will go Saturday, May the 19th at 8:30 in Cleveland. Game number 4 will then promptly go Monday, May the 21st at 8:30 in Cleveland as well. Game 5 will then switch to Boston Wednesday, May the 23rd at 8:30 if necessary. Game 6 will go Friday, May the 25th at 8:30 in Cleveland if necessary again. And Game 7, if it gets that far, Sunday, May the 27th at 8:30 in Boston. So yes, the NBA, man, what can you say? It's providing us with a lot of fireworks. That Houston Golden State series is going to be absolutely phenomenal if the first game is of any indication. The Houston Rockets are trying to prove that they belong in the conversation as one of the elite. That really Golden State has basically dominated that Western Conference over the recent years, and who can blame them? I mean, with the addition of Kevin Durant, they look unstoppable. And this guy is for real, and he is making this team that much better each and every night. On the east side, of course, Boston with the big surprising 2-0 lead, especially considering they're doing this all without Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. Very impressive, and LeBron, the question marks are arising. I mean, how can this guy beat the Celtics by himself? It was clear he tried to do that in game number 2, but would ultimately come up short. Can he switch gears when it switches to Cleveland, the series? Should be very, very interesting. We look forward to covering it all, and right up until we crown an NBA champion. This should be a lot of fun. We'll take a break here, and we'll come back with your MLB and Toronto Blue Jays report. We're going to talk about that on the other side. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. We've reached a point in the program now. I want to talk about the Major League Baseball story and your Toronto Blue Jays. And it's not the start that the Toronto Blue Jays had envisioned. They're basically trying to keep themselves afloat in that wild card second place spot, considering we already assume that one of either Boston or the New York Yankees are going to finish in that first wild card. And we've pretty much already accepted that fate, and it's just a matter now of what the rest of the teams in the American League, if they're not going to win their respective division, who is going to emerge into that second wild card position. Now, the Jays have not gotten off to a great start, but they're still in the conversation. Let's wrap the week that was for your Toronto Blue Jays. First off, it was the Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. Jays scoring 5 unanswered after falling behind 2-0, including a 4 spot in the bottom of the 8th. Jays win 5-2. They take the second game in the 3-game set against the Mariners, and they can grab the series win in Game 3 on Thursday. Unfortunately, that would not happen and would not come to fruition as Kyle Seager hit 2 home runs, including his 4th grand slam in the ballgame. J.A. Happ tagged for 7 runs in 3 1/3 innings as Seattle downs Toronto 9-3. It's Happ's shortest outing of the season as his record drops to 4-2. Jays then opening a 3-game set at the Rogers Center against the visiting Boston Red Sox. And in this first game, it was Luke Maile continuing to impress when relied upon as the backup catcher smashed 2 home runs, including a walk-off 2-run shot in the bottom of the 12th as the Jays take the opener 5-3 as they defeat Boston and starter Chris Sale, who went a complete game in this one but was lifted in the once it went to extras, and Jays ultimately prevailing 5-3 in 12 innings. In the second game of the 3-game set, Red Sox winning 5-2 over the Toronto Blue Jays. David Price getting the win on the mound for the Boston Red Sox. He won for the 3rd time this season, striking out 6 in 5 1/3 innings. And Andrew Benintendi went 3 for 5 with a pair of RBIs. Hanley Ramirez also went deep for the Red Sox. Like I say, they win over the Toronto Blue Jays. 5-2 was the final. And then finally on Sunday, they played the finale of the 3-game set, and it was Boston coming out on top. 5-3 was the final. J.D. Martinez would hit a home run and drive in 3 runs as, like I said, the Red Sox take 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays. And unfortunately, it was just not the Jays' afternoon as they ultimately fall in this series and look to rebound as they were off on Monday before starting a 2-game set against the New York Mets. And unfortunately, again, it was not the Jays' night on this specific evening, as Jaime Garcia was tagged and unfortunately, so were the Blue Jays. Juan Lagares went 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs, and Noah Syndergaard struck out 7 over 5 innings as the Mets blasted Jays 12-2. Jays now sitting at 500 on the season at 21-21. That puts us right now into our Major League Baseball standings. First, we start in the American League. As you can see here, the New York Yankees lead the American League East 28-12. They have a 1-game advantage over the Boston Red Sox, who also sit at 28 wins, but they have 14 losses. Toronto sitting in third at 21-21. Tampa in fourth at 18-22, and Baltimore in the 5 spot at 13-28. Over in the AL Central, you have Cleveland at 20-21 there in the first spot, a half game better than the Minnesota Twins at 18-20. You have the Detroit Tigers at 19-22 there in the 3 spot. Kansas City Royals at 13-29, 7.5 back, no threat. And Chicago White Sox at 10-28, 8.5 back, no threat in the Central. Then in the American League West, finally, you got the Houston Astros at 27-17, 1 game better than the LA Angels at 25-17. You have the Seattle Mariners at 24-17, a game and a half behind. Oakland at 21-21, they are 5 games behind, and then Texas at 16-27, 10.5 back of the Astros. Then over to the National League, you have the Atlanta Braves leading the the National League East. They are at 25-16, a game better than the Philadelphia Phillies at 23-16. The Washington Nationals sit third. They are 24-18, a game and a half behind the Braves. Then the New York Mets at 20-18, 3.5 back, and the Miami Marlins at 15-26, 10 games back. In the NL Central, you have the Pittsburgh Pirates 24-17, Milwaukee Brewers at 25-18, leading the Central. Chicago Cubs and St. Louis Cardinals both 1 game back. They are both at 22-17. And then you have the Reds in the basement, 14-29, 11 games behind. And then finally, NL West, you have the Arizona Diamondbacks 25-17. They have a comfortable 2.5 game lead over the Colorado Rockies, who sit at 23-20. San Francisco Giants 22-21. LA Dodgers off to a disappointing start to open the year, 16-25. They are tied for last with the San Diego Padres, who sit at 17-27. Looking ahead now at your schedule for this upcoming week for your Toronto Blue Jays, they will wrap the brief 2-game set that they have against the New York Mets this afternoon at 1:10. It will be J.A. Happ going up against Zach Wheeler of the Mets, before opening a 4-game set back at the Rogers Center against the Oakland Athletics. Game one of that series will go Thursday, May the 27th. That'll be contested between Aaron Sanchez and Andrew Triggs. And then on Friday, May the 18th, they also play at 7:07 at the Rogers Center. It'll be Marco Estrada versus Brett Anderson. And then on Saturday, May the 19th at 1:07, it'll be Sean Manaea versus Joe Biagini for the Toronto Blue Jays. And then on Sunday, they will wrap the 4-game set with Daniel Megden going up against Jaime Garcia. And then finally, the Jays will then have a 3-game set also at the Rogers Center against the visiting LA Angels of Anaheim. That'll go from Tuesday, May the 22nd through Thursday, May the 24th. Projected starters for the LA Angels in the series are Garrett Richards, Tyler Skaggs, and Nick Tropiano. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, it will be projected J.A. Happ, Aaron Sanchez, and Marco Estrada. So yes, here's to hoping the Toronto Blue Jays can turn it around and make this thing something to be believable, or to believe in or get behind, because it is very, very tough right now as it stands. But if the product improves, then who knows? Maybe we can start believing again. We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out in the Major League Baseball story and your Toronto Blue Jays for this 2018 season. We're going to take one last break. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. I just want to take an opportunity to thank you all for watching, and thank you for your continued support of TST Total Sports Talk and all things relative to that. I do really hope you guys do enjoy these episodes that I try and work so hard to put together for you. I understand that the timing's not great, but I am really working on it, and I want you to know that I do appreciate your viewership and I do appreciate your following. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, hopefully these episodes will continue to be pounded out for you, and they will only get better. And more, I guess, the more frequent that they are and the more on time that they are, they'll probably be better at the end of the day. But there's only so much I can control, and I'm a human being, and I'm running this on my own. Again, not to make any excuses, but I'm trying my hardest, and I do appreciate the fact that you guys are watching and following along. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, so for another week of TST, I am your host, Andrew Rogers, signing off, and we will see you again next week. Take care, folks.